Three, two, one. Good morning, everybody. This is Lamar, and I got my guest here, Sharon. What am I going to say? My guest? What am I saying? This is my co-host. This is my sidekick. Hopefully, we're going to have two more joining. Hopefully, today we might have Lawrence with us today, as well as Greg. You know, the four of us has been really a staple for Great Grades and Progress. And I want to thank everyone who's going to join us today. Please check out the banner at the bottom of the screen. You'll see it sliding right by there. It says Visit Us. It has our website, YouTube, which is at Grades and Progress. And then we want you to click on it. We want you to subscribe to our channel so you can check out, be informed on all our updated videos. We have to be, I think, Sharon, we have to just be a little more engaging on it. You know, just like our other organization that we have. You know, we have to be more engaged, I think, from a social media standpoint. I think we just get so caught up in our lives. But some of these days when we're just having these random thoughts in our head, just grab our phone, jump on a live and be like, you know what, today, blah, 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 blah. Catch y'all later.
Right.
And keep it moving. Like your incident you told me about yesterday, you know, with your car. That was a scary moment. That was actually a moment to go live. That was a live moment where people would have been aware where you were at. You could have let people know what was going on, that your car was broke down, or your car was having some issues. You're in the middle of some rural areas. But also, what's really informative in those moments is letting people understand how you feel. Because there's other people who may feel the same way in those same situations and they're like, well, no one's going to believe this. Or other people may say, why are you scared? Your car just broke down. No, but you can tell why you're scared. Number one, you're a woman out in these streets like that with car trouble, and you don't know what's going to happen. You have people that are out there that are also kind of lunatic, or there's a lunatic out there. You got all kind of people out there in the streets.
You're right.
So that's something that I think that we as people should do more often, is do a live when we're not just when we're being confronted publicly, but also when we're just uncomfortable in our surrounding at that moment because of our circumstance, car trouble, you know, injury, whatever it may be. It allow others to see where you, not just to really see where you're at, but there's a live document of what's going on, a live documented proof of what's happening with you. Who's this popping? You heard somebody go ding ding on my somebody. Who is this coming into the show right now? Oh, that's Greg. Let's get Greg on up in here. 1 second, Greg. Let me get you on up in here. Stand by 1 second. I gotta make another shot here right quick, or a 3-shot. But Sharon, you could go ahead and if you don't mind, saying exactly how you felt of what was going on with you yesterday, or when this car issue happened.
Initially, I saw when the battery, like I said, the first thing I did hear a pop. Had no idea what it was, if it was my car or a surrounding car. Mm-hmm. And then the battery light came on. So I'm headed I-20 west.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I-20 east in Texas, in East Texas. Okay. And so there's nothing around me, you know, just highway. And so I start calling all of the males in my family that I could get a hold to ask them, what do they think is going on with my car? Mm-hmm. And so everybody was like, probably your alternator. You need to get to a mechanic shop, AutoZone, as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. But check the battery first.
Right.
So what was going through my mind was, should I keep driving?
Right.
Am I going to be stopped on this highway in the middle of nowhere? It's dangerous.
Right.
A lot of 18-wheelers on that highway. So much is going on right now. Yeah. And so my first thought was, just let me get off of this highway. Another thought was, can I make it at least to Shreveport, right, Louisiana, which was about an hour away from where I was going. So I'm a little bit closer in. So help is near me.
Right.
And so, but I'm glad I talked to the men that said, no, you need to have that car taken care of or looked at. What would have potentially happened to me had I not done that The
Right.
car would have stopped,
Right.
and it would have stopped I would have been stranded on the side of the highway. And
Mm.
so those were the thoughts that was going on. Should I keep going? Should I stop? What should I do?
Right. That's a scary feeling to have. That's a really scary feeling to have, especially when, like,
Yes.
was it what time of the day was it?
It was during the day. It was like around 1:30
Okay.
at that time.
Okay. So it wasn't dark or anything yet, but I want to go ahead and get Greg on here. I'm
No.
playing around with this shot here. See if I get him in here. How you doing, my brother? How you feeling today?
I'm doing
Good
all right.
morning,
Good
Greg.
morning to everybody.
I'm glad to
Good
see you,
morning to
man. I'm
all the
glad to see you.
listeners.
I'm
My picture's going to change as soon as my Zoom comes up, but
okay.
I finished my dad early and just now walked in, so uh,
Okay.
I come in to listen to see where y'all were at.
Yeah,
So
we
you can take me out until I get the right picture.
okay, no problem. Okay. So
Good to
Sharon,
see you guys. Everybody pray.
what's that?
I said everybody pray.
Oh, I definitely hear you on that, man. You see what I'm wearing today? Armor of
All
God.
day.
I got my armor on. It's good to be able to incorporate. I mean, we when we started this podcast, we said, we don't want to make it like really focused on God, but as we are all believers, um, sometimes it's nothing wrong with incorporating that into your program because God is around us and we live our life. At least I know we do live our life God centered, God first. So you know, I think I was trying too hard to try to keep everybody feel included, but those that are offended because we talk about the goodness of God, so be it. You know, I ain't gonna worry about those folks as much. It's not my job to make people feel comfortable. My job is to let people know information and also stand firm on what I believe and not compromise. So definitely, Greg, we gonna stay prayed up around here. I feel you. So I'm gonna go back to
That's
me
right.
and Sharon. Let me just pop in when you're ready, man. So Sharon, we're gonna jump into something right quick that's I guess you could say it's kind of controversial because people want to push back, um, and people don't know how to respond when confronted. So we're in Texas. We're in Collin County. Actually, you probably live less than 5 to 10 minutes from where the courthouse is with the Austin Metcalf Carmelo Anthony case. I don't want this discussion to be
Right.
about the case itself, but what the discussion I want to put out there is how we are impacted by that case and how we are responding to what's being said, the allegations, the us as American people, we are so quick to be divided over anything without any evidence,
Hmm.
any clues. All we know is boom, 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 and we start giving narratives. I have been one not to post anything about that case on any of my social media platforms. I have responded to comments to people, and my comment has been the same. My comment has been you have two young men whose altercation got out of hand. These are two people that are almost identical in their character from the public perspective, which is both are great students, both are standout athletes, both come from godly households, both are engaged in their church, and one is dead, one is alive. Pray for both households. That's been my
Hmm.
in just that's been my response because we are, and I'm guilty of as well of jumping in and jumping into a conversation without knowing all the facts. And this touches us all, like us from Texas, deeply because we live in that same county, and that courthouse is not far from our homes. The altercation happened no more than 30 minutes from our homes, and things can really escalate in our society right now. And so, with that being said, by you being so close to where this courthouse is, what do you think about this? And how do you feel about what possibilities or what things that can happen?
We've already seen one boycott going on, and the boycott helped no one. It was it was a divisive type boycott, and so it was in Frisco. But let's say the case starts and they start protesting in McKinney, where the courthouse is, where I live. And so now I have to concern myself, what will happen to the residents? Will residents get involved in the emotional side of it, where it splits us as a community? And
Right.
I think that's the thing that people have to be conscious of.
Yeah.
Pray for both families. Both families have um, endured a tragedy.
Mhm.
And so we need to just pray for both of them, not get involved in the media rhetoric that divides us,
Mhm.
and try to, just pray for outcome, and that both families somehow can get through this. I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. And I think that that's the thing that's missing in our society today.
Yeah.
We like to respond and make things, instead of de-escalating, we escalate the issue and make it more than what it should be. And there's just this big thing right now to divide us as a community and as a country. And
Mhm.
so we have got to somehow, those of us that can, I don't know, keep some sense of togetherness and unity,
Yeah.
we are going to have to step up a little bit more.
Oh, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. I think that when you look at the overall um, scope of it from a social media standpoint, from a network news standpoint, I've seen so many podcasts, and it's amazing how it doesn't matter what side people are on, and it shouldn't be a side right now. It
Hmm.
should just be humanity. Um, but from a media standpoint, when the narrative starts describing one person and then describing another person another way, and you don't know either one, you know, it's like, what are you basing that off
Right.
of? And again, my concern is similar to yours of being out here because of these narratives. You could be in a grocery store line and a conversation comes up. You and your friend could be talking in the grocery store line, and then someone else comes up who has an opposing view. And that goes the same thing with politics. I remember it going on with COVID and opposing views. You don't have any room for, okay, what do you think? Oh, this is what I think. Oh, I understand your point. What makes you come to that point? It's like clash, 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 without any thoughts of where that's coming from. And when I look at, again, with this case with Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, um, you have two people who this incident wasn't a racial issue from the beginning. It was a altercation that happened to be with two people of different
Hmm.
ethnic backgrounds. Um, Now, I've heard many people say if the roles were reversed, if the roles were reversed. And we use those scenarios a lot, if the roles were reversed, based on our country, United States, based on the history of how things have gone when certain roles have been reversed. I think that that's that whataboutism mentality. And we've all done that. We've all have seen it where roles have been back and forth. But I think in this particular situation, the roles were almost still identical, even from an economic standpoint. So we've seen it where a person couldn't afford, the proper legal counsel. And you can say if the roles were reversed and
Hmm.
they had the money, yada yada yada. Well, this case isn't like that. They're from the same community, basically. I don't know what the financial status of each one of those households were, but I know that when you live in Collin County or you live in Frisco, uh, that you're in a certain bracket of standards that are somewhat similar. Now, when it comes down to court cases, a lot of times when you see an African American person, a lot of times there's a court appointed attorney. And that court appointed attorney,
Right.
so unless you have backing from organizations that's willing to support you, you're going to have a court appointed attorney. And that's just about almost to the average American, you know. But if you have, something, a network and a community around you, you can get that support. And that's what's missing. I think that's the conversation that's missing in this situation is that you have two groups of people, that two individuals who have support from their communities, whether it's the broad local community, their family community, they have support. And a lot of times we don't see that in a bigger picture in a lot of our issues in our country. But I really am concerned with how we as citizens react. I do not want to see things get violent. From that protest you were mentioning in Frisco, I am so glad a lot of counter protesters didn't approach that scene. A lot of people stayed home or stayed out of the way.
Right.
But that could have went very sideways because the stances were so strong in this case. I think Greg just left out again. I saw him pop in for a second. So, what are some? I guess give me three things that you think we can do, especially here in Collin County, in regards to this case, as the people who live here. What are some things that you think we can do?
Lamar, I think one of the things is just stay out of the negative narrative. Um, Outside of that, I don't know if there's anything we really can do at this point.
Yeah.
Um, because it just has to play out in the courts.
Right.
Now, I'll take that back. Um, there's one thing that I am thinking about that we possibly could do. And I would like our gun club to get into the community and talk to children, start programs and a narrative to teach them about de escalating, teach them about making decisions that can affect their lives for the rest of their lives. And so I think that's one of the things we probably can do. And
Yeah.
that is to get into the community and start teaching our children about mindset, de escalating, and when to walk away.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about what your peers think, what it looks like. Walk away. That's one of the things that I feel that's very crucial. And I think another thing that needs to happen is adults have to give children a comfortable format to come to be able to talk about these situations. I don't
Right.
know if he had talked to anybody prior to the incident, but they need a comfortable format uh, to talk these things over, and adults have to really get in
Yeah.
and not take and
Yeah.
do whatever they can do to resolve these type.
Right. Oh no, I am totally with you on that. Looks like Greg left out again. He was just there. I just seen him there and then he popped out. But no, we're on the same page with
Yeah, he
that.
was there.
Yeah, we're on the same page with that. The de-escalation part is really good. I think that's a great idea, especially with people who teach self-defense classes. There are a lot of firearm clubs in our communities here in Collin County. It would be this is a prime moment to do something like that, to network with schools and different communities to talk about de-escalation. And that's the conversation you don't hear. I've yet to hear any of these except for that, we were talking about a podcast with two attorneys earlier this week. I can't think of their names right now, and they were pretty impartial on how they approached it, which is the proper way to do as an attorney um, who's discussing this matter until you have all the facts, and then you go ahead and you take your case because people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. But de-escalation, they were the
Mm-hmm.
only ones that I heard really talk about de-escalation. Um, and that's something that I myself have learned to do because I'm a very, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a very say argumentative person. I will, I guess, debate with you all day, but sometimes you just got to walk away. Sometimes you got to say, you know what, it's not worth the argument. I'd rather preserve, even if I don't know you, I'd rather preserve this sort of relationship right here, and I'll just keep it moving. You can hate my guts for all I care, but I think it's
I,
best for me to move on. You
you
know,
know, Lamar, I find myself doing the same thing, especially on social media because, and this is a person that I know that sometimes posts things that I it's just mind boggling that this person's mindset is the way it is. And there are sometimes that I get ready to make a comment to reply
hmm
to either the post or the remark. And then I'll erase it. I'm like, you know what? Don't get into that.
yeah,
Just leave it alone. And I find myself walking away a lot now.
yeah. Mm. And it's all right to walk away. And like me, when it comes down to these uh, social media things, I am gonna go ahead and I'm gonna respond when somebody says something not a non-truth. I'm gonna speak up. I'm gonna say something. But there has to be a moment where I'm like, I'll just let it go. Because everyone now has seen the ignorance of the other person. I said, okay, it's time for me to just step aside. But I'm gonna bring Greg back in here. So Greg, we were talking about the Austin Metcalf, Carmelo Anthony case here in the Dallas Fort Worth area, specifically Collin County. This happened in the city of Frisco. I'm not sure how versed you are in this topic, but we weren't really talking about the case itself, what happened, what didn't happen. We were really talking about the impact that it has on our country, the impact of how we respond when things happen now, how we tend to just explode into a I'm gonna take this side thing. And we were talking about that. This community needs a lot of prayer. We need to also learn how to de-escalate. So, from a perspective of that, I'd just like to hear your take on how this is impacting our country.
This country has been struggling for a long time um, with this culture of teasing and uh, playing the dozens and debating and uh, demonizing those who are different. And this is, as Malcolm X would say, where the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yeah.
We don't have conversations anymore. I've been listening to the conversation, and um, I follow narrative in Nubia, all because trying to change my mindset of being teachable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because of my background, I know that I don't know what I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and so I need to hear all sides. And if I'm convinced of something, I should be able to bring my receipts. And this is why I believe what I believe, because this is what I've been through. This has been my experience, strength, and hope, those kind of things. Today, everybody is into, I see a little video clip and now I think I'm expert.
Mm-hmm.
I see a little bit of this and now I think that I know something. I know better than the professionals. Now, I'm a professional at my job. I've retired from it, but I'm still a customer service professional. So how I deal with people and help people in the customer service space is different than what a normal everyday person would do.
Mhm.
But for some reason, everybody thinks that because you disagree with me, you should not get to live.
Mhm.
Now, you didn't create me. You don't have the right to take me. Um, I'm caring for my dad. My dad brought me into this world. When I couldn't help myself, he cared for me and made sure I got education, got love, got grounding, got all the things that I need so that I could be successful. And this is my day to thank him because he can't do any of those things anymore, and I have to do it for him.
Yeah.
And when you spent all your life being able to take care of yourself, imagine the anger that you feel when you can't do it for yourself,
Mhm.
that helplessness.
No, you're right.
Now, what we have to do is understand we got to be in community with each other. We got to love each other. If I can't help you get to where God has created you to go,
Mhm.
then I need to stay out your way, do what I can, and pray that you be successful.
Yeah.
That's what I want for me. You know, you don't have to like me. You don't have to like the way I look. You, it, your opinion about me is none of my business.
Yeah.
But when it comes to talking about facts and the circumstance, then I need to have done the research, read the books, do the things that I need to do in order to succeed. Part of succeeding is realizing if I'm the smartest one in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Right.
I can't learn. I, I can't learn. I have to learn what I don't know. And if
Okay.
it's from a different perspective, from, I'm blessed to be a recovering addict. Um, Everything that I know is subject to be revised, especially what I know to be the truth. When I get new information and a new perspective, I come out with a new reality.
Right.
And we need to start doing that for each other. Just sharing my perspective.
Right.
Now, take the meat, chew it up, spit out the bones, use what you can. If you
Yeah.
can't use it, put it on the shelf. It may come back to you one day and say, "Oh, I heard that before. That's
Yeah.
that's how I had to learn."
Yeah. It's hard. I've had more of those one-on-one conversations where you get to learn about different people and their perspectives. One-on-one. It's very hard to have that in the group setting because people won't listen. People are so stuck. Not only that, even if they agree with one perspective or another, they're too much of a coward in front of their peers who oppose that same position to say it publicly. That's like all three of us are here, and you can say something. Sharon can say something that I disagree with, and you agree with Sharon, but because me and you are cool, more closer than you are with her, you won't say something, even though you agree with her. You won't say, "Well, Lamar, that I do agree with her on this point." You don't see that. Um,
Right.
in larger
Right.
settings, and it's all because of the your peers. Um, I've seen that more in different ethnic groups than I do in a diverse group. I've been in an all black forum where you would assume the majority think one way, and somebody would say, "You know what? I actually don't agree with that," and then the crowd would then start to divide, percentage wise on that topic, and then you start having a broader discussion. But when you have a diverse group of people in a room, you start to tribalize yourselves, even when you don't want to. You're just afraid of what your coworker or your neighbor or your family member may think of you. um, and that's that's disturbing. That's sort of actually frustrating because you have so many opportunities in our country to to make things better, and we choose not to make them better. We choose to stand by and go through these different conflicts when they don't really have to be, and that's been a trait of our country, for centuries, of not speaking up and saying the right thing. There's always one small majority, even when you don't agree. And that moves me into my next topic here. You got Project 2025. Um, we've been hearing about it, and I don't know when a lot of people heard about it, but I spoke about this like 3 years ago. We were on the Bottom Line podcast, and I brought it up. No one really had much to say about it, and I forgot where it was first introduced to me. I can't remember what it was because it actually was from I remember partially, vaguely. It was a YouTube video of one of our senators, uh, Republican senators, in a meeting with his constituents talking about this. And this video went viral. And I'm not going to say it went viral, it was out there. Because if it was viral, more people would have been talking about it. But I ended up bringing it up, and I've showed it on our podcast. And it was like, okay. And every time I brought it up between now and the time of this past inauguration, it was almost like, well, that's not true. That's possibility. We don't know for sure. But the thing about it is we've seen bits and pieces of this going on since the 80s. And that's what makes it so amazing is that now people are like, oh, it really happened. Like, dude, you ain't think fat meat was greasy? You know what I'm saying? It's greasy. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna clog your arteries. You know what I'm saying? If you eat too much, you're gonna sweat a lot more. It's gonna be it's there. So now, as we see what's being evolved into our government and evolved into our society, preparation. How do people prepare themselves, their families, their communities, their even their own self-being? How do you prepare yourself to move forward into this new way of what we call living in America, and not only in America, but you got to look at it from a global standpoint. I'm going to start with you, Sharon. Um, what do you think about how we move forward in that preparation?
Wow. One of the things I think is we're going to have to get our own households in order best we can, but then we're going to have to start unifying and working together. There's no such a thing now is if we're going to survive this is you got mine. I mean, I got mine and you get yours. Anyway, we're going to have to unite in
Oh, I think she
these
froze there.
days.
You was froze there for a minute. Go ahead. I hear you.
However, those of us that are like-minded are going to have to band together and support each other to get through this time.
Okay. I think she froze up a little bit, Greg. Um, and she's right. We do have to come and band together. But check this out. What if you took it to this point? You got cut off there at the end in a little bit, Sharon. You were saying our last thing we heard was you say we need to band together, and then you cut off. You want to start from there again?
You hear
You,
me now?
yeah, I can hear you. You were saying about banding together.
And I and I yeah, I apologize. I was telling you I'm in a rural area this weekend, so the internet is not the best.
No problem.
But we're gonna have to band to get together and do what we can to help each other because we're really all in this together. And a lot of people that have these various mindsets are going to realize that what they think they have, what protection they think they have, they're going to find out they don't have it.
Yeah.
And it's going to even be across color lines
Yeah.
because there are demographic of people that no matter what they think, they're not thought about much about either. And so we really, really are going to have to band together. And I think it's time for people as a country to start coming together and strategizing what can we do to circumvent some of the things that are going on that's hurting us as a country.
What if I push back with this? Like you were saying, band together. What if I push back on you like this and say, well, there's a segment of the country that is banding together, who's pushing for these policies, even when they're being hurt by them. They're banding together.
Then I would have to say, then in my area, then what can we do to mirror what they're doing?
That's a good point. That's a good point. I want to go over to Greg, bring you back into that. I know you heard what she just said. You heard my counter. You heard my counter. They are banding together because their policies are moving through. But what does it look like for what does it look like for those who oppose these policies? What does resistance to those policies look like?
Those who are listening to us at this time have lived under the pressure of oppression all their life. And when you get used to something or have survived through it, you don't feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we have to do as a community of people is understand that they want us to react. We have been programmed to react to what we see and what we hear.
Okay, who is
You
we?
know,
Who is we, and who is the community?
the community is a series of concentric circles around you as a person. And as you connect those circles, that's what becomes the we. It's hard to imagine,
No, I get it.
but
I'm with you.
for 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 me, as I came into the world, there was my mom and dad and me. They added my little brother. I did get to know my mother's parents and my father's parents, um, their brothers and sisters, and their families. Those are the concentric circles that come into we. But then my parents had relationships with people and the friendships, and as we grew, that's where the we gets
Hmm.
a little uh, conflated because everybody that what they say all skin folks ain't kin folks.
Right.
Um, but it gave me a start, a grounding, if you will, to understand how to have relationships with people. I was taught how to be respectful to another person. I
Right.
was taught that everybody doesn't have to agree. I was taught that it doesn't matter how you feel, you're responsible for what you do. Now, with that as the center of my grounding, my spirit, how I'm looking at what's going on, and if I'm going to suggest to anybody what to do, I'd have them start within themselves. First, you have to accept that you don't know it all.
Hmm.
And you have to accept that if I'm reacting, I'm not thinking.
Hmm.
Animals react, they got instincts, right?
Right. No,
They
you're
might
right.
up, time to go. We're gonna
Right.
migrate, Rick. Okay, so we have to have a different process.
Right.
But society, the culture we live in, has been trying to disconnect us from that thought process
Right.
in as many ways as it can. So that's the them, and we are the we. That's
Okay.
social structure,
Yeah.
what other people think about us, and we have our governance structure, who we are to each other.
Right.
And if you start building from that seed, then you create a whole new community,
Right.
a whole new process. And that's how we have to survive this, is drawing back to those things. Um, the term I learned was Sankofa, where you look to the past,
Mm-hmm.
bring the lesson to the present to help you plan the future.
Right.
So the past that I'm looking at is the culture that was there that allowed my granddaddy and my great granddaddy to survive and have families that blended together. They were able to migrate from their uh, origins in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and split up. And now I'm the product of part of that one of those stories in that great migration.
Yeah. So how do you push these? So how do you blend? I ain't gonna say how do you. I'm gonna just give you the scenario. So you have those circles, but then you have circles outside of family and outside of those immediates. So how do you incorporate what you have in that circle, those close circles, to those extended circles? I'll give you examples. You have work circles, you have community circles within your neighborhood. You have, uh, I mean, it's you have your church circles. You have so many different circles, and I mean, I know the answer from. I'm just saying it because we're talking to a broader audience, um, where these circles have to intertwine. For example, I have circles within my place of work, where I can discuss some of these topics and have a great one-on-one conversation, where it's a teaching amongst each other, a teaching amongst where even in regards to, because we're going to go into this in a little bit also, these deportations, where you have a circle of friends that you know that can be a target to these deportations, whether legal or illegal. Um, and those circles, a lot of times, will be uh, educational. For me personally, where I've learned a lot since I've been here in Texas, I've learned a lot about the perception of those who have illegally come in this country, those who became citizens in this country. And then I've learned also those that have came over here, became citizens, why they are opposing illegal immigrants coming into this country. I've heard so many different perspectives that made me open my eyes and say, wow, okay, I get it. I get it. Because you think about it from a survival standpoint, everybody's in survival mode. So if I'm a legal immigrant, came over this country, signed all the paperwork, became a legal citizen, now you have these illegal immigrants coming over the border, and I'm like, whoa, slow down, y'all coming in too fast. That's me doing self-preservation. The more they come over, the more I'm a target again. If that makes sense. So I'm not saying it's right. I said I'm learning perspectives of why people think. Um, and then I look at, I've always raised this question over the past, say, 3 months, is I really see only a certain group of people being inhumanely deported. And then I know that in this country, there's a lot more in here that don't belong here from a legal standpoint. But I also believe that people come here because of, again, the word we use as survival. Um, we were the only group of people, when I say we, people from African descent, we were the only ones that didn't come here because of a choice for survival. So when we look at it from that perspective, we're like, well, why not? Heck, everybody else here, why not? Then you got to break down those other pieces: economics, healthcare, taxes. You put all those things in perspective. Go ahead, Greg.
But one thing that you don't,
that
that
we
we
don't,
don't,
we're
we're
not
not taught
taught is
is
that
that
we
we
were
were
able to
able to
make
make,
our own communities.
Yeah.
We were able to separate ourselves within this structure. And because the real history has never been taught about who we are as a people,
Yeah.
we don't understand what we have already done. Who knows about the Maroons?
Yeah.
Who knows
Definitely.
about the area in North Carolina that was isolated, where around the DMV, the Badlands,
Yeah.
where the name outlaw came from, who were the real cowboys. You don't understand how we built communities from the perspective that differences were an asset to the community,
Mm-hmm.
but you still protected the community first,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so in my work circle, and I worked 39 years for the post office,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was a window clerk. Um, you build community by showing love.
Mm-hmm.
That's the message that we're taught. We take from the Bible those things that we need because it's a living document that changes over time, but the messages are still the same.
Mm-hmm.
To love your neighbor and love your enemy, because when you have a community of love, then God's creation has a chance to thrive and survive.
True.
My grandson has a place to be. Your children have a place to be. Now we done got to this point in this society where the children and grandchildren being in school with each other,
Yeah.
they understand and know that something's wrong at home.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
that 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 granddad says things that I know that I'm not supposed to say
Mm-hmm.
in public
Yeah.
to other people.
Yeah.
And then I want to ask him why. I got to come to him with questions. My parents never pushed me away, but there are those parents out there that don't want to take the time to look at their trauma,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I say it starts here
Yeah.
and the healing goes from there. Because when you love into the environment, you change the environment.
No, you're right.
Plain and simple.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So, getting to these deportations we were talking about, um, that's another resistance moment. How do that's another moment of resistance. I just read a story. Um, I don't know all the details behind how and why. So there was a woman from Cuba, married to an American citizen. She's been here since 2019. They have a child. She has to check in regularly with immigration, to talk about status and things of that nature. She went to immigration to check in, and they handcuffed her, detained her, and sent her to Cuba. Her baby was right there. Her husband had to show up, get the baby, and I don't know, those type of things. There are things happening in our country right now that are um, brutally ugly,
Horrific.
brutally ugly, and you're looking at a country that wants to be considered respected around the world. I remember um, during Trump's last administration, he kept using the term, and during his campaign, the world doesn't respect America anymore. The world doesn't respect America anymore. I would beg to differ that right now that they respect them even less right now. And I give you an example. Yesterday during the Pope's funeral, Trump and Melania walks in, the crowd erupts. The news media is like, "Wow, here come the Trumps," but actuality, the crowd was erupting and being giving us loud applause because they saw Vladimir Zelensky from Ukraine on the big screen. That's who they were applauding. I haven't heard the details of the meeting, but after that funeral, Trump and Zelensky did meet yesterday. So I don't know all the details on that just yet. But when you look at things like that with immigration things, just removing people unjustly. And then, Sharon brought up yesterday in one of her topics that was discussion was the artifacts of the African American Museum being removed. And I was just reading, we were just talking as we were prepping this morning, that really just kind of like pissed me off big time was how, that in Greensboro, North Carolina, at the Woolworths, when those young kids, I call them kids because they were kids, at the lunch counter was getting beat and her racially discriminated against at that lunch counter. That artifact is being removed. That was an artifact that was one of those moments, again, where you see like, wow, America, this is one of those reckonings that we have to deal with. These are one of those situations that we have to face as a part of our society that we know that is wrong. For that to be removed and to erase that storyline from our museums means you're trying to change a perspective of our history. To almost say that it didn't exist. And the more and more these things are removed, that's why it's so important that we keep our books. Hold on one second. It's so important that we keep all of our data, all of our historical information, because as you remove those things, like my granddaughter, who the oldest is 11, my youngest is like maybe 9 months, they're going to look at those stories as being did it really happen? Was it it's going to be almost like a what do you call it, like a folklore. Like it possibly was true, but we don't know if it was really true. As of right now, we know it was true. But you were going to say something, Greg?
Yeah, I just wanted to offer a counterpoint.
Mm-hmm.
They've been trying to get us to get emotionally outraged.
Oh, yeah.
And out, right? So in the museum, what they're looking at, possibly,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure, but this is what makes sense to me. Some things I'm not going to allow them to destroy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to remove it. They want it removed? Okay, I can remove it. I'll put it somewhere where you can't get it because I'm going to be able to put it back.
Mm-hmm.
If I let you remove it and destroy it.
Yeah.
Take, for instance, the post office.
Mm-hmm.
They put in DeJoy. He dismantled the processing machinery and took the brains of it and destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't have the means, revenue, and the equipment to put it back,
Right.
to make the post office run efficiently. And that's because of what we were doing with mail-in ballots.
Yeah. Right.
Those things that went through the mail.
Right.
So, they'll tell you something in the media, who I don't always trust.
Yeah.
But they won't give you the perspective. They'll just look on from the outside and, oh, they're taking this out, so this must be the reason why they're doing it. They
Right.
want the click. So I just wanted to offer something different.
No, you're absolutely right. And us removing our own artifacts is what we need to do, because we can put them in a place where we can still see them.
They can't take our history from us.
No, they can't.
And we found our voice, and we're no longer going to hide. It's just that plain and simple.
Totally agree with you. That's why I was saying keep our books, keep our information.
You made a good.
Go ahead, Sharon.
You made a good point, Greg, that I never thought about. And now, with that being said, I wish a lot of other historians or families whose loved ones have information in their museum start removing it so that they're in control of their artifacts and don't let it get into the hands of people that will destroy it. That was a great observation.
Right, but trust the leadership that's there,
Yeah,
because the people in charge of that
yeah,
historic place, the first one ever in my lifetime, with all the mother, I think that they are looking long term,
yeah,
and they see something that we don't get to see in my little neck of the woods in Cleveland, Ohio, or wherever you are in Louisiana or Texas. And
yeah,
we have to start understanding how to how to think logistically.
yeah. Oh, I agree.
Hmm.
I agree with that. And
And you know, I didn't get a chance to.
yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sharon.
No,
While
you
we're
go
on that
ahead.
topic, I didn't get a chance to make a comment on the immigration uh, piece of it.
Sure.
So for me, I don't like the inhumane things that they're doing. My yard man, the guy that does my yard, is Hispanic, and during the beginning of the spring season, he wasn't coming to do my yard. So I became concerned. I kept texting him, asking him, okay, are you coming? I'm going to come. And I wait a week and he still didn't show up. And so all of this time, I'm concerned what is happening to him? What is going on that he will not come? He lives in Anna,
Okay.
Lamar.
Okay.
So, you know, the proximity of where he is from me.
Right.
And so the first time he came and cut it, I wasn't home. So the second time last week, I was home when he came, and I asked him, I said, what's going on? I said, you know, so he told me he had a lot of work. That's what was keeping him from coming by.
Hmm.
And I asked him, I just point out, asked him, I said, is all of your documents, is your paperwork in order? I said, because you know the climate we're in right now. So I just want to make sure that you have all of your documents and paperwork in order. He said, yes, I do. And so, and then he went back to, he was like, I can't believe these people voted this guy in office. He said, I just don't know, you know, what's going to happen. So, and then I had a knock on my door. I was telling you, and it was a volunteers from a lady that's running for city council here.
Yeah.
And so I told the volunteers asked me what was my concern. So other than safety in the city, economics, traffic congestion, I told them, I said, I'm also concerned about my fellow man. And I said, I'm watching to see the climate of this city and how they're gonna.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm just watching to see what's gonna happen to them in this city. I said because I'm concerned not only for myself, but I'm also concerned for my fellow man.
Yeah.
But I think that it's very unfortunate that it's been being done in many cases is very inhumane the way it's being done. And then this hands off, defying the courts, all of that is unsettling
Right.
with me.
Mhm. No, I'm on board with you. This is I guess this is going to be one of the ongoing discussions, but I think one of the things we do definitely do know is that what Greg mentioned, he always mentioned every time about that community. Um, as we talk in these smaller circles of community and continue to build relationships, that's where the real work is done. That's where the real changing of mindsets happen and perspectives. The thing about it is that we have to also show support to those who may, whether someone changes our perspective or we change their perspective, we still have to show that support to one another. And that's regardless of ethnicity, regardless of what tribe you stand on. If it's a Trump supporter who I oppose, and me and that Trump supporter have an understanding of the views and perspectives of why they decided to do what they did. I'm not saying, I'm talking about where there's like legitimate authenticity, transparency in that conversation. And that person gives you an insight of something of why they did what they did. And although you may not agree with it, you still say, okay, I understand why you did that. How can the next question should be, do you feel it was right? If that person says, no, it ain't right, but this is why, now that's a deeper conversation. You know it's not right, but how do I get you to think or do something that is right? And in that conversation, you have to be a supportive person because that person is now confided in you. The worst thing to do is confide in someone of why you're stuck, and then you expose them. And I'll give you an example of that. There was a friend of mine, I think I might have told this story, a person I knew from childhood who is a Trump supporter, big time Trump supporter. And we started having conversations during 2021, around that time, 2022. We started having some really, really deep personal conversations, things that that person confided into me for, which I never exposed it. But one thing I did do where I betrayed that person's trust was he would talk to me one way on the phone, but then publicly he acted a complete fool in another way. Well, I found this video of that person on the radio being interviewed in Cleveland, Ohio, on a radio station. And the person he was being interviewed by was opposed to his Trump views. And they got to arguing, debating back and forth. Well, this guy on the radio host was chopping this friend of mine down, just chopping him up. Everything he brought to the table, he chopped it up with facts, data, everything. Well, this friend of mine I know took the idea because thought he was going toe to toe with this guy publicly on the radio station. He broadcasted this video. I'm looking at it like, dude, you was a complete idiot on the airwaves. I copied that video. I mean, the dude chewed him up and then basically disconnected him from the call. I copied the video because I know how to copy video from places I don't need to copy them from. I copied the video and I posted it on Facebook. And I said, this dude really thought he was doing something, but was literally broken down piece by piece by this new host on the facts of what's really happening in this society. That person has not spoken to me. He called me up, cussed me out, chewed me out, and I haven't heard from him since. Now, the thing about that was he confided in me on some things. He entrusted me with information that I never exposed. I kept that confidential. But I caught him at a moment of weakness. In my perception, is a moment of weakness. And I exposed that weakness. Where I could have called that person again in a private conversation. Number one, to preserve the relationship. But number two, to understand his ignorance. To where I could have swayed that person's perspective over time. Instead, I pushed them farther away. This was a white person. I put it there of what made the relationship delicate because it was a lot of racial conversations where he was able to see my perspective over time, and I was able to see his. But I think I took a moment of knowing that he was failing, and he didn't realize it, and I exposed that failure. So when I say about these communities of smaller circles, that we can, even with someone that we feel that we don't like and we can give zero blanks about them, how do you have a conversation, or do you just say, screw it, I just let that person go? I'm talking about when they're in a circle of community, a community that you are part of. Go ahead, Greg. Your mind is clicking. I can see it.
My mind is running because in the whole process, it's about learning to have relationships and learning about intent versus impact.
Mm-hmm.
my intent may be pure, but the impact, I don't know. I can't control how somebody receives my efforts, what I say. That's an ongoing process of growth between people that the society does not want us to develop, because then we have deeper relationships, deeper communications, and it's harder to separate us and have us at each other.
Right.
Okay. So, if we all learn things as we grow older. I'm still learning things, and I'm 70 years old.
Yeah.
And I still make the mistakes of allowing my zeal and my energy and my intent to make me think, well, they'll be all right. But the impact may not be all right. I might trigger somebody to a place that they thought they healed and they haven't.
Yeah.
And that's why I get into the process of teaching anti-racism is to develop relationships. Because when you hear my story, when you hear what has happened to me, then you have to sit with how it feels to you.
Right, right.
And you can't accuse me of having impact on you because you don't like my story. That's between you and you.
Yeah, right.
And so we still just have to continue on that minefield and learn to just develop relationships. Somebody that here's one thing that I did, and I told you I was a customer service professional, right? A window clerk at the post office. If I had a regular customer from another country, I made it my business to learn how to greet them in their language and say goodbye to them in their language. And because I was in a Hispanic community, there was a couple other things that I wanted to at least bring the transaction to a close. I think uh, my first Spanish phrase that I learned was algo más. Will that be all? Right? Because we want to make sure that we have this, and that environment changed the people in that neighborhood. I got a chance to love on a neighborhood, one person at a time. And it takes a Christian mindset to realize if I'm going to love my neighbor, doesn't matter who my neighbor is, they're my neighbor.
We totally agree. No, you're right. We're going to close out. We're going to, like we always do, get around for these final comments. Sharon, want to give us your final comment for today?
I think we have to keep watching and looking at what's going on in our country. Is constantly evolving. There's a lot of resistance. Lamar, I don't know if you saw in the news. I'm not sure the culture, but there's a group of individuals that's trying to have their own development neighborhood shopping centers, and they are being resisted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you don't want them among you, and now they're trying to build their own community, and you're resisting them from building their own community.
Right.
And so I think we just have to keep our eyes and ears open to the climate, do what we can, and most importantly, support each other when we can.
Yeah.
Don't lose the faith. Um, we may go through some difficult times, and that's why it's going to be important that we support each other.
Totally agree. What about you, Greg?
Don't let someone tell you something absolutely that you can learn for yourself. Do the research. There's misunderstanding, miscommunication. there are motives and methods to manipulation, but when you read it for yourself and you do the research, then you use your own mind. God created you with the individual purpose, and you have to be on your job, on your journey. So let's stick to our journeys and realize that when we succeed, everybody succeeds.
Totally agree. I like that. I like that. I mean, I'm going to stick to it, stay in the same vein there of community. Um, Continue to build on those communities. Um, and sometimes you may get in a community that feels uncomfortable. I give you two things. Because of the climate of our, if there have been relationships built out of those communities, fine. But I tell people, right? I mean, I advise people or would suggest that people, um, if you're part of a community and you feel singled out and you feel that um, you're not welcome or your views aren't being taken, I would say step out of that community. I'll say step out of that community because you got to look at your own mental health and your own self worth. Many of us, I'm that guy, or I would say I've been that guy up until recently. I will stay a part of a community to try to continue to get my perspective seen and heard and felt, and thinking I'm going to change somebody's thinking. Then I switched it to say, well, you know what? Maybe somebody else can learn something from this interaction. But when you realize that you are not, the situation is not what you perceive it to be, as you're not actually part of that community as you think you are, I would say step away. It's going to preserve your self worth. It's going to preserve your mental health. It's going to preserve your self love. Um, all of us want to be accepted, but we have to face reality that you're not going to always be accepted. And we see that right now in our country. Um, for people who are like on like the flags are flying all over the place because their lives are impacted by executive orders, you realize now you weren't really part of that community that you thought you were part of.
Mm-hmm.
And even in that moment, you have peers who are still stuck there. It's time for you to remove yourself because you're not going to become the enemy of that community because you continue to
Become a target.
you
Yep.
continue to oppose it. Again, if you find a one-on-one situation, preserve that relationship. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to be fully engaged in that full community. Um, and that's almost contradictory to what we talked about earlier about building relationships and community. It's almost a contradiction. But
No, that's refocusing
refocusing,
your
yeah.
efforts.
Yeah. And it's also
That's
a
all it
reality.
is.
It's also a reality. See, I'm going to go back to a word I used earlier also, survival. As I would say over the next, I mean, this is long after the Trump administration is gone. It depends on what happens in that next administration, how this country will move forward. But those executive orders that have been in place are going to be standing still. They're going to still be here through a next administration, whether Democrat or Republican. So I believe in my whole heart that the word survival, that mode is going to be something that's going to be a integral part of just about every household in our country. And that survival has levels. Depends on where you're at. It depends on what part of the country you're in. It's going to depend on your family dynamics. It's going to depend on where you work. All those are going to be encompassed in those different levels of survival. So I just want everybody to think really hard about preparation. When I say preparation, what is better for yourself and your immediate family, and then those little communities we talked about earlier. And with that, that's my take on today, and hopefully that we'll get to catch up again next week or the week after that, the next time we meet. But as I was telling Sharon, Greg, When we get a chance, man, get on this YouTube channel that we got and do a live, man. Just do a virtual, hey, I have this emotional moment right now. This is what I'm feeling. Boom, click it live. So we can start adding content to this. And if you all need to have more information on how to add content to our Great Grace and Progress YouTube channel, we can have a one-on-one. We can discuss that. I can show you how to do it. But that goes for
I
me
need
too.
that.
Yeah, myself as
I
well.
need that.
I need to start adding more content. So I don't want to hold you all up on a
Okay.
Saturday. I want to say I love you both. And for those that couldn't make our
Love
show
you
today, miss my man
Well,
Lawrence.
loving you back. Loving
Thank
you
you.
both.
I don't know where Lawrence is at, but
Thank
I
you,
missed that
Sharon.
brother as well. But I'm going to go ahead and take us out. Catch y'all next time on Great Grace and Progress.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good one.
Peace.
Bye.